In 1946, a former Soviet tank mechanic who had no formal training in engineering or manufacturing submitted a design for a new gun in a competition. His design was selected, and it became the new rifle for the Soviet military. However, it didn't just become a weapon for the Soviet Union. The design spread and within decades was being used all around the world in almost every armed conflict. Learn more about the AK-47 and how it managed to change warfare in the 20th century on this episode of Everything Everywhere Daily. This episode is sponsored by Fiji Water. You've probably heard of Fiji Water and have seen it in stores. Well, Fiji Water really is from the islands of Fiji. Drop by drop, Fiji water is filtered through volcanic rock, 1,600 miles away from the nearest continent and all its pollution, protected and preserved naturally from external elements. In this process, it collects a unique profile of electrolytes and minerals, resulting in more than double the electrolytes as the other top two premium bottled water brands, giving Fiji water its smooth taste. Fiji water's electrolytes are 100% natural, and this water even has a perfectly balanced pH of 7.7. I've recently been trying to reduce my consumption of diet soda, and I found Fiji water to be a great alternative. Visit your local retailer to pick up some Fiji water today for your next backyard party, beach day, hike, or even your home office. Fiji water is Earth's finest water. This episode is sponsored by Mint Mobile. There are numerous subscriptions that you pay for every month. If you want to reduce your monthly spending, your only option is usually to cancel and go without. But in case of your phone, you can significantly reduce your costs while still enjoying almost the exact same service by switching to Mint Mobile. With plans starting at just $15 a month, Mint Mobile gives you premium wireless service on the nation's largest 5G network. With Mint Mobile, you can use your same phone number, contact list, and even connect to the exact same towers and cellular network. The only difference is price. And that's why I recommend Mint Mobile. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/EED. That's mintmobile.com/EED. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. If I were to ask you what the deadliest weapon of the 20th century was, your first reaction might be to say the atomic bomb. Yet, despite how devastating they are, only 2 bombs were ever dropped. And only, and I'm using only in quotes here, 200,000 people were ever killed from them. There is a weapon that has been far more deadly than the atomic bomb. More lethal, in fact, by over an order of magnitude. The AK-47. Trying to get an exact number on the total global deaths that can be attributed to the weapon is difficult, but estimates put the number of dead at over 10 million. The AK-47 has been a significant, if not central weapon in almost every armed conflict in the world over the last 70 years. Now, over the years, there have been many models of guns that have been manufactured. So what was so special about this weapon, and how did it become so ubiquitous? The story starts in the days after the Second World War. A young Soviet tank mechanic named Mikhail Kalashnikov lay wounded in a hospital bed. Born in 1919 in rural Siberia, Kalashnikov had witnessed firsthand the devastating effectiveness of German automatic weapons, particularly the Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle against Soviet forces. This experience sparked his determination to create a superior automatic weapon for his homeland. The Sturmgewehr 44, also known as the STG-44, was the world's first mass-produced assault rifle and a revolutionary development in infantry weapons. Developed by Nazi Germany during World War II and introduced in 1943, it was chambered for an intermediate-sized cartridge, offering a balance between the long-range power of rifles and the close-quarters firepower of submachine guns. The STG-44 featured a select fire capability, allowing soldiers to switch between semi and fully automatic fire, and a 30-round detachable magazine, enabling them to engage targets effectively at both short and medium ranges, up to approximately 300 to 400 meters. Its effectiveness lay in its versatility, providing German infantry more firepower and tactical flexibility than either bolt-action rifles or submachine guns alone. Kalashnikov wasn't formally trained as a weapons designer. He was essentially a gifted tinkerer who understood machinery. This outsider perspective would prove crucial as he approached the design problem without being constrained by conventional weapons engineering wisdom. The Soviet military establishment initially gave this requirement to experienced designers, but Kalashnikov's prototype stood out for its remarkable simplicity and reliability. His design philosophy centered on a key insight. A weapon must function flawlessly even under the harshest conditions, operated by soldiers with minimal training. This meant fewer moving parts, looser tolerances that could accommodate dirt and debris, and components that could be field stripped without tools. The AK-47's revolutionary design can be understood through three core principles that Kalashnikov embedded into every component. First, the gas-operated system was brilliantly simple. Gas from the fired cartridge drove a piston that cycled the action, with enough power to function even when fouled with mud or sand. Compare this to more precise weapons that might jam if even a single grain of sand entered the wrong place. Second, the manufacturing approach broke new ground. Rather than machining components to extremely tight tolerances like traditional firearms, Kalashnikov designed parts that could be stamped from sheet metal or roughly machined, then assembled with enough clearance to function reliably. And this wasn't just about cost, it was about creating a weapon that would work consistently across millions of units produced in different factories. And third, the ergonomic design reflected deep understanding of how soldiers actually handled weapons in combat. The distinctive curved magazine, the placement of controls, and the balance of the rifle all emerged from practical considerations rather than aesthetic ones. When his design was selected, it was named the Avtomat Kalashnikova Model 1947, or shortened to AK-47. Avtomat Kalashnikova simply means Kalashnikov's automatic weapon. The Soviet Army's official adoption of the AK-47 in 1949 marked the beginning of one of the largest manufacturing undertakings in military history. The USSR didn't just produce these rifles for its own forces. It established a comprehensive technology transfer program that would have profound geopolitical implications for the rest of the century. During the Cold War, Soviet doctrine emphasized supporting Allied nations and revolutionary movements worldwide. The AK-47 became a cornerstone of this strategy. The Soviets licensed production to Warsaw Pact countries such as Poland, East Germany, and Czechoslovakia, but they went even further. They provided complete manufacturing packages, including machinery, technical expertise, and raw materials to developing nations across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This created a fascinating paradox in the history of manufacturing. While Western nations typically guarded their military technology closely, the Soviets actively promoted the proliferation of AK-47 manufacturing. China, North Korea, Egypt, and later Iraq, Iran, and dozens of other countries established their own AK-47 production lines. Each nation often modified the basic design to suit its manufacturing capabilities or tactical preferences, creating numerous variants while maintaining the same core functionality. The AK-47's reputation was forged through decades of warfare, where its reliability under extreme conditions became legendary. In the jungles of Vietnam, American soldiers often preferred captured AK-47s over their own issued M16 rifles because the Kalashnikov design continued functioning in mud and humidity that would disable more precise weapons. This battlefield success created a feedback loop that accelerated adoption worldwide. As conflicts demonstrated the weapon's effectiveness, more nations sought to acquire production capability or purchase completed rifles. The design simplicity meant that even relatively unsophisticated manufacturing facilities could produce functional weapons. And consider how this differed from other military technologies of the era. While jet aircraft or tanks required highly specialized manufacturing and maintenance capabilities, the AK-47 could be produced and maintained almost anywhere. The democratization of military firepower had profound implications for global conflicts. By the 1970s and 80s, AK-47 production had reached industrial scales previously unimaginable for small arms. The Soviet Union alone produced millions of rifles annually, while licensed and unlicensed production in other countries added millions more. Estimates suggested that by 1990, over 70 million AK pattern rifles had been manufactured worldwide. The weapon's role expanded beyond conventional military use. Revolutionary movements, insurgent groups, and irregular forces found the AK-47 particularly suitable for their needs. Its durability meant weapons could be cached for years and then still function when they were retrieved. Its simplicity meant that fighters could learn to use and maintain the rifle with minimal training. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 created another wave of proliferation. Vast stockpiles of AK-47s from disbanded military units entered the global arms market, often at extremely low prices. Some estimates suggest that during the 1990s, AK-47s could be purchased for less than the cost of a live chicken in certain African markets. In addition to being cheap and easy to manufacture, the spread of the AK-47 was also partially responsible for the rise of child soldiers. The weapon was easy to operate, requiring minimal training due to its fewer moving parts and intuitive controls. Its relatively light recoil made it manageable even for children to fire accurately on automatic or semi-automatic settings. One of the reasons child soldiers proliferated is that they had a weapon that children could use. Now, if we put aside some of the primary benefits of the AK-47, such as its price, ease of manufacturing, and ruggedness, is it actually a good weapon? For example, how does it compare to the primary infantry weapon used by the United States and Western allies in the late 20th century, the M16? The M16 was developed in the United States in the late 50s and introduced during the Vietnam War as a high-tech alternative to the older M14 rifle. It utilizes a smaller high-velocity cartridge, which enables flatter trajectories and higher accuracy, especially at longer distances. The M16 is lighter than the AK-47 thanks to its use of aluminum and plastic components. Its tighter manufacturing tolerances also make it a more precise weapon in the hands of a well-trained soldier. However, those exact tolerances means that it requires regular cleaning and maintenance to function reliably, especially in adverse environments, a weakness painfully exposed in the early years of its use in Vietnam, where it suffered frequent jamming. Over the years, many of the early problems with the M16 were resolved, but I'll leave that for a future episode. In theory, the M16 could be considered a better weapon, but weapons aren't used in theory. In the real world, the AK-47 is easier to maintain, more forgiving of abuse, and favored in irregular warfare where resources are scarce and combat is chaotic. The M16, by contrast, performs better in organized militaries, where logistical support, training, and better discipline are readily available. The 21st century brought both continuity and change to the AK-47. While the basic design remained largely unchanged, a testament to Kalashnikov's original design, manufacturers began developing modernized variants to meet contemporary military requirements. Perhaps the most significant thing about the AK-47 is that it isn't just a weapon. It's a powerful cultural symbol whose influence extends far beyond the battlefield. Its silhouette, which is instantly recognizable by its curved magazine and angular stock, has come to represent revolution, resistance, and power, especially among non-state actors, insurgent groups, and liberation movements. Perhaps the most striking example of its cultural impact is on its inclusion on national flags and coat of arms. The flag of Mozambique, for instance, features an AK-47 with a bayonet crossed with a hoe. It's the only modern national flag to depict a firearm so explicitly. Similarly, the coat of arms of Zimbabwe and that of East Timor's defense forces incorporate the AK-47's shape, reflecting their revolutionary roots and reliance on Soviet or Chinese-supplied arms. In addition, countries like Burkina Faso and Angola have minted commemorative coins featuring the AK-47. In popular media, the AK-47 can be seen almost everywhere, appearing in films, video games, music, and art across genres and continents. In Western action and war films, from Rambo to Black Hawk Down, the AK-47 is the weapon of the enemy, often wielded by insurgents, terrorists, or foreign soldiers. In video games like Call of Duty and Counter-Strike, it's a staple weapon of the game. In music, particularly in hip-hop and reggae, the AK-47 has been mythologized as a symbol of street power, rebellion, and at times nihilism. Musicians have mentioned or referenced the weapon, incorporating it into their lyrics and album artwork. Beyond entertainment, the AK-47's image has also been used in propaganda and protest art, embraced by both authoritarian regimes and revolutionary groups. It's appeared on posters, t-shirts, graffiti, and murals, sometimes glorified and sometimes as a critique. Its global proliferation and association with both freedom fighters and brutal militias has given it kind of a dual legacy, part liberator and part instrument of terror. The rifle's very ubiquity ensures that it means different things to different people in various contexts. In some regions, it's a badge of resistance against oppression, and in other regions, it's a symbol of violence, warlordism, and oppression. Current estimates put the number of AK-47s in the world today at around 100 million. It accounts for approximately 20% of all the firearms in the world today. Mikhail Kalashnikov passed away in 2013 at the age of 94. Near the end of his life, he struggled with the death that his weapon had caused. In a letter he wrote to the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, he wrote, quote, "My spiritual pain is unbearable. I keep having the same unsolved question. If my rifle claimed people's lives, then can it be that I, a Christian and an Orthodox believer, was to blame for their deaths?" End quote. Even though he could never have imagined it, Mikhail Kalashnikov's invention was one of the fundamental items that helped shape the 20th century. The executive producer of Everything Everywhere Daily is Charles Daniel. The associate producers are Austin Oetken and Cameron Kieffer. I want to thank everyone who supports the show over on Patreon. Your support helps make this podcast possible. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Everything Everywhere community who are active on the Facebook group and the Discord server. If you'd like to join in the discussion, there are links to both in the show notes. And as always, if you leave a review or send me a boostagram, you too can have it read on the show.